So Caitlin just pulled up. She got a bit of an upgrade. So, whoa, that's okay. I just stepped in a hole. So, long story short, Farm Spark got into a bit of an accident. And by a bit, I mean, it was an accident. And Farm Spark is no longer. Caitlin's fine, but Caitlin got a bit of an upgraded vehicle. So she's quite excited about this.
No, I can't fit so much. I can fit 10 crates if I wanted to, but the last crate was on with the hyacinths and I was not touching that.
Yeah, that's fair. Caitlin's pretty severely allergic to hyacinths. Look at all of the seedlings she's got in here.
There's some trays.
Is that more larkspur?
Yes.
Oh, son of a gun. So look at how much your vehicle can fit now. Hey everyone, it is Brittany here with Green Bee Flowers. If you are new to our channel, we are a 2.5 acre cut flower farm and boutique florist shop located in small town Southwestern Ontario. You can help our channel, of course, and support our channel by subscribing, hitting the like button if you enjoyed the video, and of course, dropping a comment below if you have any questions at all. So I wanted to start today's video first by saying a huge thank you to everybody for their well wishes and their thoughts for our son. It is, right now it's Tuesday morning, and so it's like the Tuesday after he was admitted, so he's been in hospital now for 5 days. We aren't expecting he's going to be coming home until tomorrow at the earliest, possibly Thursday morning. It turns out that he had a strep A infection, which got into his bloodstream, and so which caused pneumonia, but also meant that he needed IV antibiotics for at least 7 days. So we're hoping that those 7 days are kind of the max out and that he will be able to come home sooner rather than later. It's at the point for him now, I think, where he's just getting a little frustrated being stuck in a hospital bed, and I don't blame him for that. So anyways, I just wanted to start and say thank you for that. It means so much to us to have like an entire community of, gardeners and people across the world who are just, rooting for our son, but also, so invested in our farm and our little family. And it really made my heart happy. So we're going to get into today's video. So now that our growing season is completely underway, we have loads of tulips in the walk-in. We've actually expanded into the second part of the walk-in cooler because there's just so many tulips. So this week we have wholesale orders going out, including to a brand new florist friend of ours, so we're excited about that. I also have a lot of stuff that I'm going to be harvesting and bringing to the shop. And this is really the beginning of farm season for us. This means that our bouquets in store, every year we do a seasonal only green bee grown bouquet that is available in store. And then on Saturday mornings at our market, we typically have, a sale version of those. But in store, we offer these bunches at $20 and they look something like this. And we love them. This is kind of one of our spring options, but we like to include kind of a mix of what's in bloom. Now, one of the things I did want to do is kind of break down at every level the cost of how we get to those flowers, right? From start to finish. So cost of bulb to corm to things like that, the markup we do at wholesale, and then the retail markup on top of that, so that you can see at each step of the way where we are hopefully profiting, right, from those. I personally believe that for $25, a lot of, from what I've seen, farmers are actually end up selling their stems at their farm stands at more of a wholesale cost. And I think it's because that labor aspect of what you are doing and just kind of like a standard markup for flowers isn't, I don't know why it's not talked about. We're going to talk about it. So I'll come back to that later. there's a lot of fun stuff and I'm gonna need to like sit down with notes. But in the meantime, we're gonna do pretty things with Ranunculus because I got a whole bunch to pick. I just wanted to show you how long these stems are on this variety of daffodil. I don't actually know which ones these are. I think they might be the Tahiti Tahiti daffodils, but these are easily like 18 inches, 14 to 18 inches long, which is great because these are the prime height for using in long hand-tied bouquets. A lot of the other daffodils that we pick, the stems when they're a little bit shorter are great for like arrangements, but they don't make great stems for hand ties. So this variety is really nice because it's so long. It's a later it's a later blooming narcissus, and so we like to be able to use these for our hand-tied bouquets. They go beautifully with tulips, and then the ranunculus that I harvested this morning that also had like 20-inch stems on them, these will go into bouquets with those later this week. So we're headed back into the hospital to see the tiny human very shortly, but we had to come out this morning and get a ton of stuff harvested. So I have 4 crates of tulips in now. We've harvested 4 buckets of daffodils. It's about 10:30, so in about another half an hour, we'll drive 20 minutes up the road to Sick Kids. But stuff on the farm is looking really, really good. We had I think about 5 rows, so about 1,000 larkspur seedlings went in the ground last week. After that rain, they are super happy. The feverfew looks really good. Our bachelor's buttons are all starting to grow. And the peonies really popped up too. So I'm gonna show you guys that because it's quite the little patch. So this section here is all of our early peonies. The buckets of peony roots from the house that we are trying to salvage due to Annie, the flumpy destructor, are going to be going in here as well. But these guys are looking so good. Have to come through yet and kind of like weed out the rows and lay fresh straw, but that might be a later in the week job. So we've moved now into the second cooler. Our stockpile's getting to be quite something. There's a lot of tulips in here. This is just 2 days worth of harvests. A whole bunch of these we're going to pick and process for wholesale. There's a bunch going to florists. We're also starting to grab crabapple blossoms. And more buckets of daffodils are in here, which we are storing dry. So this is this is gonna be something. But we got a good stockpile of tulips, and these are gonna kind of stay frozen in time. Right now the cooler isn't even actually on, but it's still sitting around like 6 degrees Celsius in here. We are due to get some cold weather again next week, so once that's passed, usually around May 1st is when the homeowners will like turn the coolers right on. That's a lot of flowers, guys. These are headed out for wholesale. It's pouring so bad today. All right, so we're now into Wednesday. It is rainy, so why not? And I'm just having a look here. There's ranunculus buds, so a couple more weeks. And we're hoping today is discharge day for Joseph. It's been a long couple days, and it's been interesting to try and manage like the farm alongside of, you know, having to zip back and forth from the hospital to be there with him. But he's doing really, really well, and staff have been working really hard at keeping things on track, and Nick's aunt has been around giving us a hand as well, just getting some general weeding and things like that done here at the farm. So we're pretty grateful. It could have been a lot worse, and it's a bit of a kind of a stark reminder all the time too, every time he gets an admission into something, that he is medically fragile, and we are very blessed that we can do as much as we can with him. We'll say that. Now I'm gonna pop over because I want to show you guys the tulip patch. It's like popping. There's tons that Caitlin is going to be harvesting this afternoon. It's really beautiful. The crate graveyard. There's never enough this time of year. Got some really beautiful varieties coming on. So these ones will get pulled today, and then we'll send a bunch to the wholesaler and stockpile the rest for Mother's Day. Now this variety has some of the coolest leaves. We'll just leave it there. The pink on these though, like I sent a bunch of these off to the wholesaler yesterday, and I think that the florists are gonna love these this year. They're so pretty. These ones as well, when they color up, beautiful. Now when we put these in the fall, Caitlin is my organized girl, right? Was smart enough to keep all of our singles on one side of the farm and all of our doubles on the other side of the farm. Or I guess in the patch, not the farm. It's all the same part. And that has been really helpful this year when trying to determine what's what. So they're all kind of like in the spots they're supposed to be, and I'm really grateful for that. And this variety, oh, I'm going to show you guys. This one's so pretty. Like the blooms, this is a peony variety, and the blooms on these are absolutely massive. Now we're gonna wait and pick these once they dry a little bit because I do not want them to mold in the cooler. But like, so this is the size of a bud of like a peony tulip, right? So you can see it here. And these ones beside are doubles. So like, you can really, I don't know, you can see the difference in size between the two of them, and it's quite drastic. Now I'm also pretty thankful that it's a little cooler today. It's not cold, but it's probably around the 10-degree mark, and it's cloudy, so it's going to slow stuff down a little bit, which is nice because if we are bringing Joseph home, it gives us a chance to like get our heads on straight.
today's episode of what Caitlin will use as a phone holder, Toothless. He holds my AirPods. And like the 50th tray of up potting. Got amaranth going on right now. Woo! Yay me. I'm just in the seed room giving everybody some water. And when I water, we bottom water. And I lift the 4 cells up and then just, water it 'cause it's just easier. Just gave myself a jump scare at this thing. Look at those roots. I thought it was giant spider webs. It scared the crap out of me. These guys gotta get in the ground soon. Goodness.
So I wanted to spend the rest of this video kind of talking about the markups on flowers, because I think that there is an expectation in the flower farming world that your hand-tied bouquets, and I mean like packed bouquets, right, are or should be priced around the $20 mark. And I want to talk a little bit about why I think that that is incorrect. I think that that pricing model where you're pricing your focals at $3 and your fillers at $2 and your shoots or other little bits, foliage, if you will, at $1, and then filling your bouquet up kind of based on that formula, I actually think is incorrect, and I think it's doing you a disservice if you are selling bouquets in a market. I think that there's a distinction, first of all, that has to be made between market gardeners, which are a lot of the flower farmers that we do see across YouTube, versus the full-time farmers who are growing for retail cut, right? And these types of farmers range anywhere from what we do on a small amount of land, working with local florists and wholesalers, to very large operations who have models where they are moving thousands of stems a day, right? So it's, I think, important, first of all, to make that distinction. Because I work in both models, right? We started out our flower farming journey selling at the farmer's market. We still do this, but our primary source of income for the flower farm has moved to our boutique florist shop. One of the main reasons why we made the decision to open the floral shop last year is because as the quality of the stems that I was growing was increasing, as I was moving more stems of mine to the wholesaler, I was finding that at a market rate, I was not getting the value per stem that I should be getting at a retail price point for the flowers that I was growing. When you are a flower farmer and you are doing all of the work of the farmer, whether you are a flower farmer like we are, or whether you are a smaller scale market gardener, you are doing all of the work as a florist and also a farmer. And we're very quick to discredit our own abilities and charge less than what we should charge because we're nervous that people are not going to buy. First of all, we've had to make some course corrections in our pricing as we've grown and learned, and I think that that's part of business pains. But I also think that because there's this chronic need to undercharge for flowers, and part of it is because the expectation of somebody who's coming to purchase flowers at a farmer's market is very different from somebody who is walking into a floral shop. But like I said, you're still doing all of that work, right? So it's not a race to the bottom. And a big part of understanding how to price your stems properly is to understand the various markups along the way. So I'm going to talk about that for a moment. Now, when you purchase flowers, when you purchase your seeds, when you purchase your corms, when you purchase your bulbs, that is your cost of goods, right? Your base cost that is going into that actual flower grown. We'll use tulips as an example here because we're in the middle of tulip season, and I think it's important to talk about the stem pricing on tulips. So for us, where we are, and I just want to point out that this is situational, right? Like our pricing, what we have for a market value may not be what you have for a market value. And so use this with a grain of salt, but I want to encourage you to do research on what is the market value for a stem in your area. So for tulips, right, there's several different categories of tulips when you are growing them as a flower farmer and purchasing them as a florist. Your single tulips, which are the, regular tight budded, small headed, single tulip, they only open with the one set of petals. Those typically run in a bunch of 10 from the wholesalers, from anywhere from $7 a bunch to $8.50 a bunch in season. That is what they cost right now for me to purchase them from my supplier. So per stem, you are looking at 75 cents a stem in cost to purchase on average that one single tulip. Now, it's important to understand, right? It is very difficult to compete with grocery store tulips, other than the fact that obviously farm grown tulips are infinitely better quality. You are not competing with the grocery store. So you're not competing with the grocery store. Now, you are to take that stem of tulip, right? Traditionally, a florist markup can be anywhere from 3 times the price of what they paid for that stem, all the way up to 5 or 6 times the price of what they paid for that stem, depending where they are and depending on what the going rate for that specific flower is at that specific time of year. So for us, we mark up a stem of tulips anywhere from the 2.5 to 4.5 markup, depending on if it's an event and we have additional labor that I have to incorporate into that cost, or whether it is a straight bunch that's headed out the door. But the thing to remember as a florist and also as a flower farmer is that your costs, what you pay yourself, and all of the costs that you are collecting in growing that stem have to be paid back by that markup, right? That would be like a single tulip. When you are looking at your double tulips, so the fancy ones all the way up to the parrot tulips, they tend to range anywhere from $1.20 to $2 a stem to purchase from the wholesale supplier. Now, that's not to say that that is the price that I get from the wholesaler when I sell to the wholesaler, and I will talk about that in a second too. But we still mark that stem up into a retail price point to move it out the door of our shop. And that was a huge adjustment and a change that I had to make in the way that we thought about pricing flowers. It also meant that I had to change and understand the way I price my stems at the wholesale level, and then how that markup changes again at the retail level. We'll use Ranunculus as an example on this one. So if you're purchasing Ranunculus from a wholesale supplier, the Ranunculus stem, depending whether it's an elegance variety Ranunculus or a cloney variety Ranunculus, can range anywhere from $2 a stem all the way up to $5.50 a stem, which means that at retail, that Ranunculus is now anywhere from $7 a stem up to and above $20 a stem for one specific flower. And then when I come on here and I see flower farmers, I come on YouTube or I go on Instagram and I see flower farmers who are selling their Ranunculus for under $2 a stem to the general public, I shake my head a little bit because I know how much those corms cost. and I know how much work goes into growing them, and I know what I have to pay for them from the wholesaler, that those markups do not make sense. So please, 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 if you are a market gardener or if you are a flower farmer, understand that prices do matter. So the next question, of course, is what do I sell my stems to the wholesale supplier for? And what do I sell my stems to the florist for? Because those are two completely different numbers. When I sell my flowers to the florist, I have to remember that I am doing all of the work of the farmer and all the work of the wholesaler, which means that I sell my stems to the florist at the price that my wholesaler would be selling the stems to me. My ranunculus sell anywhere from $2 to $4, depending on the variety and time of year. And my tulips sell singles for $7.50 a bunch to the florists for a bunch of 10. And the doubles, peonies, etc., they sell for anywhere from $1.40 a stem all the way up to $2 a stem, depending on the variety. Even daffodils, I will match the price that the wholesaler is selling to the florists. And I do this for a very important reason. It is not my goal to undercut the existing network of floral supply. Wholesalers get a bad rap because they are, of course, tied to the import market. I think it's a missed opportunity when flower farmers are not reaching out to their local floral wholesalers who are delivering to all of these other florists, because that network already exists. They do the work for you. So when I sell my tulips to the wholesale supplier, he literally picks them up from my store and takes them on his way. It is a significant reduction in cost per stem that I get from him versus what I am actually selling. And without getting into like their markup either, what I will say is based on the cost of the bulb to me, on singles specifically, I make anywhere from 20 to 30 cents per tulip from bulb to harvest, which is not a lot when I sell it to the wholesaler. Now, you're probably like, Britt, like, why would you do something like that? I mean, there's a few reasons for it. For starters, I think that it's a great experience and a great relationship to develop with the wholesaler, because at the end of the day, they are very close to me and it saves them a trip to Toronto if they can get stems from me. The second thing is I typically consider tulips sold to the wholesaler as a loss leader. Tulips are not generally, for most growers, a profitable crop. Every year I see more and more Instagram flower farmers drop tulips from their roster of things that they're growing. And some of it is based on changing climate, some of it is based on disease, but a lot of it is based on the fact that the public as a whole generally has a bit of a, I think, cheap nose to single tulips specifically. However, even if I am 2 to 3 times the markup on the tulips, so for us, we sell retail bunches of tulips at $20. We do that for 10 singles and usually 7 doubles or specialties. And it's not a high markup on those by any means, which means I consider them a loss leader because it gets people excited about flower season. It gets my florists excited about local flower season. It gets the wholesaler thinking about all of the things that we are starting to grow. And for that reason, I continue to buy crazy amounts of tulips every year, simply because it's the energy behind the tulips that really brings out their profit later in the season, if that makes sense. Ranunculus, on the other hand, are absolutely a profitable crop at every level. I probably will never be able to grow enough ranunculus for the demand in this area right now. People genuinely really love them because they have such a long vase life. But ranunculus are a flower as well that I think in a lot of parts of North America is a fairly new flower on the market. You know, like 5 to 10 years ago, they weren't as big as they are now. And it's a flower that brides are now asking specifically for in their weddings, where, you know, it used to be peonies, right? Everybody gets married May and June because they want peonies. Now ranunculus, due to a lot of really talented growers in Ontario, is available all year round here. Which means that I will continue to grow it, and we will continue to try and get to the point where we are able to have them for, you know, 6 months out of the year in the cold season and have them dormant during the regular flower season. And ranunculus is an important one to think about as well because they involve a lot of labor. Tulips really don't comparatively. Like, the harvest season for tulips is so short. They take a day to plant out. The most tedious part is actually sorting them. And then as far as processing them, because we've got that whole system down like fairly simply, it's a much less intensive, labor intensive crop than ranunculus, which need things like drip tape and constant weeding, and are going to need to be netted with like the square plastic netting. If it gets too hot, they need shade cloth. You know, a lot of big growers actually do their ranunculus in like industrial greenhouses that are temperature regulated, whereas field growers are still working with, you know, hoops. I would realistically probably never sell ranunculus at less than a 2.5 retail markup. So if I'm purchasing that ranunculus from my wholesaler and the price on that ranunculus is $3 a stem, the minimum price I'm going to charge for that in my store is $8 for that one stem of elegance ranunculus. So it's wild. It's absolutely crazy to see it when the growers, flower farmers are selling these extremely luxurious high-end flowers for extraordinarily cheap, and I mean like under $3 a stem cheap, which by the way is less than what I sell it to my florists for and less than what I sell it to my wholesaler for. I do think a lot of the conversation around pricing is just a lack of education and a lack of openness. There's not a lot of dialogue right now in the flower community about what the price per stem should be on stuff. And I think part of that is because the network doesn't exist where I am yet, where growers, small scale growers like us can, you know, kind of collectively agree on a price. And so I really do make the point of using my wholesaler's price list as kind of the baseline for what I'm going to charge direct to florists, since that markup that the wholesaler is putting on stems that I'm selling directly to them covers their costs, which we would be absorbing as we sell them ourselves. So that makes sense. The delivery, the administration, the ordering, like all of that kind of stuff, like chatting back and forth and emailing with the florists and things like that. It's a very different way to navigate the cut flower market, but I do want to encourage those of you who are hoping to be able to get a higher price for your stems to go to Google. I know that that's probably a redundant thing to say, but there are flower lists out there. There are grow lists of kind of what things cost. I think if you are part of the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers, there's usually some sort of pricing that comes out there. There's also a lot of wholesalers who, you know, if you are purchasing from them, you get their pricing. And like, honestly, that wholesale pricing is less than the minimum than what you should be selling your flowers for at a farmer's market. So like another one that I want to kind of give an example of is Lysianthus. super popular right now, beautiful flower. Any time of year I purchase it, it is at least $2.20 a stem to buy it into my store. Canadian grown Lisianthus in large greenhouses, still $2.20 a stem. And that's not an unreasonable price to be purchasing that from. But if you are selling your Lisianthus in your hand-tied bouquets for less than that, you are selling your flowers for less than wholesale value to your customers at a farmer's market and doing infinitely more of the work than a florist is doing by getting them from a wholesaler. So do think about those things, right? You, as a grower, as a designer, are still going to want to make some sort of profit on your stems, and you are going to want to mark those up to at least a minimal retail price. And I will tell you that marking your stuff up only 25% over top of the wholesale, that is not integrity or integral pricing. That is not honoring the integrity of pricing in the floral design industry. Flower farming is not a race to the bottom. You're not competing to have your stems be the lowest price that they can possibly be. It is likely going to be more beneficial for you to spend some time learning some design of bouquets and wrapping and colors, so that you can get that retail pricing for your stems even in a farmer's market. Now, I have a video that I've done before where I've talked a little bit about the breakdown of a market bouquet and kind of what those stems should cost. And I want to try and do some more of those for you guys throughout the summer. This is the bouquet that I showed you earlier, and this is the recipe for it. We had one crabapple stem, which is a large branch. I was selling to florists for $2 a stem because that's about what they're going for retail right now. So I can get usually 2 bunches. So we'll say $1 wholesale a stem for that crabapple bunch or branch. There's 5 tulips, single tulips. So you're looking at 75 cents for each one of those. 3 daffodils, specialty daffodils. Right now, 10 stems of daffodils are about $5.50 to purchase if you are one of my florists. And depending on whether we have them ready, small ranunculus. Now these are what I would call B grade ranunculus. They're not A grade elegance cloney ranunculus, and so these at the wholesale I would be pricing at about $1.50. So by that math, the wholesale cost on those bunches are around $8, which means that when we mark them up, we mark them times 3, which comes out to $24. So those bouquets, after the packaging, the elastics, are priced at $25. And that gives me the retail markup for each of those stems. You cannot just decide that flowers are worth one thing and throw them in a bouquet. I mean, you can, but it's not going to get you very far, and you either will make a lot of enemies from other people along the way, or you're not going to be able to sustain your business. It is a great idea if you are planning on selling your flowers to florists or planning on selling your flowers to the public, to understand that there has to be a markup on your flowers up and over wholesale. Because even though you may think that the profits that you are making or the net that you are making on those stems is crazy, you also have to remind yourself that all of your business expenses are paid for by your flowers, right? So everything that you make has to be made in the cost of hard goods, and not only hard goods, but like a perishable hard goods, which means that you also have to consider the fact that there is the likelihood that 10 to 15% of the stems that you either grow or purchase are going to be trashed, either because of quality, rotting, not selling, them blowing out too soon, etc., and etc., and etc. So you have to kind of work that into your pricing strategy as well. I only wanted to break this down because it is a question that I get very frequently, either through, you know, our Instagram, email, or in the comments here. And it's not possible for me to sit here and say what your markup should be from the actual stem that you're growing to wholesale, right? That's going to change completely based on where you are located in the world, what's available, what flowers you have to purchase from other countries versus what ones you grow, you know, around you. Not everybody has, you know, a climate like ours, but it does really, really help your pricing structure when you understand that wholesale cost is kind of the lowest. It's too low. Like, mark it up at least times 2. Like double the cost of that stem. So even if you think that selling ranunculus for $8 a stem, an A-grade florist grade ranunculus that you have grown yourself from your market garden, is too much because your clientele base won't purchase it for that, whatever the case is, mark it up times 2. You decide that the wholesale price for that specific stem is $2.50. You're going to sell that flower for $5 instead of $8, which would probably be the minimum of a florist pricing. So anyways, I'm always happy to answer questions on this. I think I'm in a slightly different position because we work with the profit margins and the market margins every step of the way. If you have any questions, post them below. I'll do my best to answer them. But also, like I said, you are going to have to do some of your own research on this, but I do hope that this helps as kind of like a baseline for your flower pricing going forward. And remember, have fun, guys. It's a business, but it is also a very delightful business to be a part of. And so anyways, that is all for us today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, looking forward to answering them. Have a great day. Bye, guys.